talk about?
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Ray Addison in the GB newsroom. Energy companies have told the Prime Minister they'll do more to help struggling families after a meeting today in which he urged them to act in the national interest. The talks follow a dire warning, with one consultancy firm forecasting that the cap on energy bills could reach £5,000 by next year. Despite the plea from Boris Johnson, there's been no official announcements of any immediate help. Liz Truss is promising to make sure that energy companies are held to account, but says profit should not be treated as a dirty word. Speaking in Cheltenham at the biggest hustings of the contest so far, the Foreign Secretary said the energy giants need to be rigorously held to account.
We need to make sure we're using our reserves in the North Sea and incentivising companies to do that. We need to make sure we're fracking in parts of the country where there is local support for that taking place. As Prime Minister, I would make sure I am working with the energy companies to get that supply on as quickly as possible.
The former Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, says the government will need to provide more support than he previously thought to help vulnerable people with their bills. He also appeared to criticise Liz Truss's plan to deal with the cost of living crisis, saying it would make the economy worse.
What I will not do is pursue policies that risk making inflation far worse and last far longer, especially if those policies seem to amount to borrowing £50 billion and putting it on the country's credit card and asking our kids and our grandkids to pick up the tab.
Meanwhile, Labour says it wants to put a stop to unjustifiable premiums paid by customers with energy prepayment meters. The party says the practice can result in them being charged more than those who pay by direct debit. Labour says its policy would help around 4 million households. It's just part of a larger package of measures the party's been working on to tackle the cost of living crisis ahead of Ofgem's August price cap announcement. The number of Ukrainian families that are now homeless or at risk of becoming so after arriving in England has doubled in the last 2 months. Officials believe more than 1,300 Ukrainian households are affected after arriving under the Family and Homes for Ukraine schemes. Hundreds of placements have fallen through due to relationships with sponsors breaking down or accommodation being called unsuitable or unavailable. There's fears that more families could be affected as their initial 6-month placements end. On TV, online and on DAB+ radio, this is GB News. Time now for those headliners.
Hello and welcome to Headliners, the least boring newspaper review show on the telly. I'm Andrew Doyle and I scoured high and low for the finest comedy minds the UK has to offer. Couldn't find any, so I've asked these two. It's Josh Howie and Leo Kearse. Let's take a look. Don't pretend to be insulted, Josh. Let's take a look.
Self-deprecating start. Yeah. Well, it's not self-deprecating. Andrew's deprecating.
I'm deprecating you. It's not self-deprecating. I'm bigging myself up.
But also the least
contrast.
Boring. Yeah. Like, well, come on, man. This is exciting news.
Exciting news.
We're quite good at comedy.
Tell that to your audiences. Anyway, let's have a look at tomorrow's front pages. We start with the Daily Telegraph has Truss, no windfall tax on energy companies. Front page of The Independent has water firms miss own targets on cutting leaks. And only one of 17 companies hits mark over household wastage. On to Friday's Guardian now. They run with a drought alert. New rules on way as climate crisis bites. There's a lot of drought talk. We're going to be talking about that in a wee while. Friday's Financial Times has Bank of England warns Truss and Sunak not to interfere with city regulation. Onto the front of Friday's Mirror now. They go with millions living in fear of price rises, warning of 5,000 a year bills, yet Tories and energy fat cats have no plan. And that big headline, clueless. Onto the front page of the Times now. Sunak plan to cancel out energy price rises and thinking too hard can cause a bad case of brain drain. Onto the Express. And they've got shocking new warning, energy bills to hit 5,000. That seems to be going up every day as far as I can see. And finally, the front of Friday's Daily Star has, we're going to hell in a handcart, but crisis? What crisis? And those are your front covers. Well, seeing as how I've apparently offended the panel from the off, although I thought you had thicker skin than that. I thought it was all about the bands.
Now you're having a go at my psoriasis.
You know, the psoriasis. Well, look, let's move on before it gets ugly, and it is getting ugly in here.
And now we're ugly.
Not calling you ugly, the situation, the
awkwardness.
Very, very literal-minded. No, see, anything I say is now an insult. It's impossible. We're going to kick off with Friday's Guardian, and this is the leading story there, and this is the drought, which appears to be covered on most of the front covers today or tomorrow.
Let me try and cover this in the least most boring way. To cover the drought story. So, yes, England is likely to be declared officially in drought on Friday. What we're talking about is water restrictions, fire risks, farming hardship. What it essentially also means is that the water companies can now start doing hosepipe bans by themselves. They don't need to wait for the government to do any of that stuff. Temperatures are likely to reach 36 degrees in some places over the weekend. It's the driest 9-month period since 1976. South East England received less than 10% of its usual rainfall in July. So things are getting serious. Driest July since 1935. All this stuff is not going... And going back to those three things there, water restrictions, I mean, hosepipe bans and stuff, I know that's hard for people's gardens, but, you know, not cleaning people's cars, it's not the end of the world. Fire risks, they've done these, like, aerial shots of the country, and there just seems to be, it's just lots of sort of yellow.
I mean, we've got this photograph here as well.
That's a fire, by the way.
That is a fire.
That's a fire.
To illustrate the fire risk.
Yeah, and but one of the things that I hadn't really appreciated until reading this article is the farming hardship, because already what they're going to mean is it's threatening crop yields, raising the prospects of even higher food prices. And that's not what we need at the moment.
This is bad news generally. I'm just going to throw something in here from this was a tweet from Evolve Politics the other day, and they pointed out that private water companies are leaking 1.1 trillion litres of water every year, which is enough to fill 450,000 Olympic swimming pools.
Would you use it for that, though?
I mean, I don't think they're suggesting that would be the best usage of the water.
Yeah, it seems ridiculous at this time to be worried about filling Olympic swimming pools.
I mean, look, they have a point, don't they? That, you know, why can't these people fix their pipes? Because that's what it's down to.
Absolutely.
They have leaky pipes.
Well, and
Yeah, absolutely. You wouldn't accept it from an oil company. If an oil company was leaking 1.6 trillion gallons or whatever of oil into the soil, yeah. So there's obviously the technology there to make pipes that don't leak, because we've got it with oil and with other chemicals. So yeah, they need to. I think because we've been used to plentiful water, because it just falls out of the sky for free.
It does,
like a blessing from God. So you know we haven't been so concerned about a little bit seeping out.
Yeah. No.
But then on the other hand, I mean that water that does seep out. I mean, because I've been walking around the city looking at the trees and wondering where they get their water from. So maybe that water goes into the trees or something, and then if we stop all the leaks, you know, the trees all die.
I don't think that's how it works.
Is that in the article? I don't remember that bit.
It's not in the article.
Well, the article's all doom and gloom.
It is doom and gloom.
It's all doom. It's like saying we're all going to burn. There's going to be crop yields. For most people, we're just going to get a suntan, have a nice barbecue.
Yeah. Well, I just want to say one final tweet is that we're talking about those pipes. You know, since water was privatised, hundreds of billions of pounds have been just taken out of this country, taken to investors, and have not been re-put back in.
Out of this country?
Yeah, out of this country to foreign companies and foreign people.
I think that's a bit of nonsense. I think most...
That's what look, it was on Twitter. It has to be true.
I mean, I think, Josh, look...
I think if you've got a pension, which most people do, then the money from private investments, from private companies, goes into your pension. So it's not like the money's just being spirited away.
But they could be doing more to prevent the rest of us having to cut back on water.
Yeah.
By just fixing their bloody pipes. Anyway, let's move on now to Friday's Daily Mail. Worrying energy bills on the horizon. Of course, Leo, we're talking about this pretty much every day, but why is it that every time we get a new story, the total has gone up.
Yeah, so there's no plan agreed to solve Britain's energy crisis. So Fat Cat energy bosses have had a meeting with Boris Johnson on the soaring cost of living crisis, but fails to offer a way forward. And yeah, there's a warning that bills will hit £5,000. Just a couple of days ago, there was a warning that bills could hit £4,300.
Yeah, so it's gone up another 700.
So that's inflation for you. That it's just going up. But I mean, also it's people just speculating. And
but
the higher the number, the more inflammatory the article, and the more people read it.
Well, sure, but I mean, also, aren't they speculating it's going to stay that way for a decade? Whereas the other day they were saying it would be roughly 2 years.
Yeah, and
so what's the truth here?
The difference is, I mean, at this point, we've known that energy prices are skyrocketing for 6 months, at least 6 months now, because of Russia and Ukraine, and also other wider issues. And we still haven't started fracking. We still haven't started digging the Campbell oil field in the North Sea.
But Liz Truss has pledged to do so.
She has, but that's going to be for her to get in and then put the wheels in motion. I cannot believe that as soon as Russia, Russian boots set foot in Ukraine, and we saw that we weren't going to be able to use Russian gas and oil, and those prices would spike. We should have immediately started fracking, started exploiting.
Do you think fracking is the solution here?
I think it's possibly. I mean, things are getting desperate now, and they're looking more desperate. But this story really is about, as well as the prices going up, is about Boris seemingly trying to do something, and they're gathering these people in together. The CEO of E.ON, yeah, allegedly. Well, this is the thing. So this guy's on $1 million a year. The CEO of E.ON. The other people are on just ridiculous amounts of money. Even the head of Ofcom's on Ofgem, is on £300,000 a year. Yeah. Bring them all in. They're going to bang some heads. And at the end of that big meeting, they were like, yeah, there's not really anything we can do.
Yeah. Right, exactly. Banging heads doesn't work. Particularly when those heads are earning all of this money. Can you bring
the prices down? Yeah, no. But through the article, there is an interesting thing later on that I hadn't realised is that these companies can only make a maximum profit of £35 per household. The rest of the cost is coming, of course, from the massive rises in the wholesale prices. Now then, of course, it's like there's no incentive. That's where the real increase is coming from. But they have no incentive. They just will go, well, here you go. Yeah. Passing it on. Sorry, it's really expensive now. You're just going to have to pay.
And in fact, in a lot of cases, the energy price caps mean that they've had to sell on energy at a lower price than they purchased it from the wholesale market. So, price caps, market fixing don't work. And also giving handouts to people doesn't work, because the price of energy is a signal that people should use less of it because there's not enough of it to go round. And until we start fracking, until we start getting out of the North Sea, then there's going to be plenty. But this signal is being corrupted by the fact that we're giving people more money. So all that means is people use more, so then the price goes up even further.
Well, I don't know. I think there are some people who are using that just to survive.
Yeah, but
it doesn't mean they're using more.
The solution isn't making it even more and more expensive. The solution is getting more of it out of the ground so there's enough to go around.
I agree with you, but one of the things that Labour said today, which isn't in this article, is about at least fixing this whole thing for prepay, because they pay more money, that's been proven, and they need to get on top of that, because those are definitely the most vulnerable in society, and they're being exploited even further.
Yeah, but if you got a prepay meter, it's because you didn't pay your bill. So you deserve to have it cut off.
Right, we have to move on now. Leo's note of personal responsibility there coming through. On to Friday's Times. Our universities were once the envy of the world. Doesn't seem so now, Josh.
Well, certainly not if you go to public school. Right. That seems to be what they're saying. So now 1 in 5 students at public school are now applying to go abroad, specifically to America, to their Ivy League, as they call it.
Yep.
Which is what?
Harvard,
Yale, Princeton,
Stanford,
Columbia,
Dartmouth.
and all those. And what some of the head teachers are saying from Eton and whatever is basically saying now that Cambridge and Oxford are ever increasing the number of pupils coming from state schools. And I think it was 68% in 2020. It's going to be 72% in Cambridge last year. I think a lot of people who are paying a lot of money to go to these public schools are sort of going, well, wait a minute, we're not getting in. Or where there's less chance to get in now because we've gone to public
There is
school.
a sense that it's quite transactional,
absolutely.
And I have to say, because I used to teach at a private school, and I was the Oxbridge coordinator, and my job was to basically manipulate it to get as many kids into Oxbridge as possible. That was the job, and there are ways to do it. In other words, there are, you apply to certain colleges for certain things, and you sort of coach them of how to handle the interview process and all of the kind of stuff that you would have never got at the sort of school I went to. Like that stuff just isn't there in a lot of state schools. So in a sense, I think it's fair that Oxbridge are pushing through more state kids or accepting more state kids. But on the other hand, what's going to happen now?
Well, so a lot of them are looking towards America, and also you think about like some universities now are still not doing full like face-to-face tutoring or lectures and stuff like that. So they say if you go to America, you're going to get more for your money.
This is the thing in Britain. So we've seen this across a lot of institutions. Like the NHS is kept. So the neonatal classes are still done over Zoom, so you don't get to meet the other parents and stuff like that.
Which is the whole point of
a class like that. And the whole point of university is to go and meet people and have the social side of it as well. And if you're just doing stuff online, you're missing out on all that. So why should you pay tens of thousands of pounds just to sit in front of a Zoom call?
Probably more expensive to go to America, I would have.
Yeah, and it's a lot cheaper. You might as well sit in front of YouTube and just learn everything from there.
Well, is it worth going to? Oxford and Cambridge are among the most sort of woke universities, and they're really pushing an agenda. And you can actually probably learn more by just reading a few books yourself. Or is that just my agenda coming through?
Watching GB News?
Says former Oxbridge.
It doesn't matter. I think things have changed since.
Your book in particular?
Yeah,
new book coming out?
My new forthcoming book. Thanks for mentioning that, Josh.
Yeah. Those of us who didn't go to Oxbridge don't know how to write books, unfortunately.
Let's move on now to Friday's Guardian. It has two political heavyweights discussing important political matters, a bit like here. You see, now there's a compliment for you. You were complaining about fat. I can't win. I can't win. Talk to us.
Well, Nicola Sturgeon has claimed that Liz Truss quizzed her about how to land an interview in Vogue magazine when they briefly met at COP26 last year. And Sturgeon, of course, quipped back to Truss. I said to her, "They came and asked me." Proper Mean Girls level.
That's why I wrote down Mean Girls.
This whole article seems really high school because basically, am I right in thinking Liz Truss made a quip about Nicola Sturgeon?
So Liz,
ignore her.
Ignore her.
Truss is because Sturgeon is pushing for a second independence referendum. I don't know why, because it'll be the end of Sturgeon, whether she wins or loses. I mean, if she wins independence for Scotland, she'd be a pariah within about 30 seconds, and if she lost, she'd have to step down as head of the SNP. But Truss has said that Sturgeon is an attention seeker. That's what she is, so this is Sturgeon having a pop back. Asking how to get into Vogue. I mean, as long as it's not Razzle.
Why is it relevant whether Liz Truss asked how she got into Vogue? I mean, what's so wrong with that? Nicola Sturgeon got into Vogue. She doesn't strike me as...
Twice, yeah. But she said, I said to her, they came and asked me, how have you done so badly and failed nearly all of your pledges? That should have been their number one question.
But I don't understand why... Lulu, I understand. Why would you go for... If you're going to go for a Scottish woman, why would you go for...
I don't think Lulu's
Scottish woman.
Lulu's Scottish.
Lulu's from Glasgow.
Is she?
I guess there's a trend.
Cranky, they could have done the Crankies.
Why aren't the Crankies in Vogue?
Yeah.
They should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I mean, also, it doesn't seem that bad. But I mean, Liz Truss isn't glamorous enough, is she, for Vogue? It's not like Theresa May.
Are you saying that Nicola Sturgeon is?
No, I'm actually... No, I don't think that, no.
There's a sort of trend for putting political figures. We saw was it Vogue? The cover of Zelensky and his wife sort of hugging.
Oh, OK, so this is quite a thing now.
Yeah.
OK, but maybe not for Liz. Theresa May I could have seen, because Theresa had really glamorous clothes.
Right.
She looked great. Anyway,
I can see you've got the same outfit.
What are you saying, Josh?
I'm just saying your outfit's a bit crap.
It's
unbelievable.
That's coming from Josh.
Looks
like a Vietnam
I'm just getting my own back from the opening. That's all.
It's really nasty in here.
You do look like you're in an AC/DC tribute band.
What, with this tie?
Yeah, you just need shorts on, and then.
Does this look like a school tie? Because that's not what I was going for.
What do you go? Is that the hip tie? Is that your hip tie?
I just saw it in the shop and I thought that looks quite nice. But if it looks like a school tie, I won't wear it again. If it undermines my authority, right?
It's got like day glow on it.
Moving on to Friday's Times now, and the world seems to be shifting eastward. Josh.
Yes, so Chinese scientists are more influential than rivals in America and Germany. This is according to a Japanese analysis that has looked into all of the research papers across the world and found that China, for the first time, has accounted for more than a quarter of the top 1% of cited papers in the last few years. So 27% as opposed to, I think, American 24.9% or something. So that's kind of a big deal because what that leads to in the long term is more technological advantages. So it's interesting. You know, in China, as we know, they're better at creating viruses, and you know they're
What are you
better.
saying, Josh?
They're better at hacking and stealing and companies' ideas. So
It's edging, you know, slightly towards xenophobia.
well, no. It's
It's
just
just factual. I mean,
facts,
the biggest corporate theft of all time was the American fighter, the F-22 or something.
I don't know. I'll go see Top Gun. I'll
Can't
find
remember
out.
what it
Does this all mean that, you know, China seems to be the world leader in everything now,
Well,
basically?
the worry with science and with China is obviously because it's an autocracy. They're not subject to the same regulatory constraints that in a democracy, you know, we worry about people and people have rights and things like, you know, basic
You
things
don't.
like that.
You don't worry about it.
No, I really do because, you know, in China, they don't have, you know, over here we agonise about, you know, testing on rabbits or whatever. Over there, they literally test on, they'll test on monkeys, they'll test on people. They've got, you know, Uyghur Muslims.
Yep.
So it's really disturbing, and that's leading to them making advances in you know, neuroscience and stem cell treatment, but it's based on this exploitation of people. And
Yeah, people aren't thinking about this, are they? You know, if China's going to be the superpower in years to come, and there are ethical considerations there, given that it's an authoritarian.
They don't have the same ethics that that they have necessarily in the West. Certainly on these matters. I mean, you know, not talking about. But also, they're publishing a lot more papers. So they've been publishing like 400,000 to America's kind of 300,000. So obviously that. But so there is still a question of the actual quality, I think. But we look at what their papers are in. Clinical medicine, chemistry, electronics, communication, automation, biology, material science, chemistry, computer science, engineering. These have a massive impact. They are literally the future, and that they are in the lead and control that information. Interestingly, this report has just come out on the same day that Biden has just invested $200 billion in a sort of catch-up investment scheme. We'll see if that...
Seems like we're constantly playing catch-up.
Yes.
I think we need to learn Chinese. That's the answer. That's it for part one. Coming up, the Tavistock Clinic are in trouble again. My least favourite perfume ever, and one of Leo's favourite topics, women's hips. See you after the break.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle, the hard-working Josh Howie, and the just hard Leo Kearse. I mean, that's tough. I mean, tough.
Yeah, the only place I could be seen as tough is in central London.
Yeah, but yeah, that's right. Not in Scotland. In Scotland, you don't seem tough at all.
In Scotland, I'm a perfumed milk toast.
It's all relative. Friday's independent now, and legal action against the Tavistock Clinic. I mean, who saw this coming? Everyone.
Yeah, well, exactly. We've talked about this for a while. You know, there's going to be this massive medical scandal, and guess what? It's nice to be proved right. At the same time, it's sad that there's up to, they're saying here, potentially 1,000 families who are going to be suing the Tavistock.
Just in case people don't know, what is the Tavistock?
So the Tavistock is the only centre in the country really for dealing with children coming in to identify as trans kids, essentially. It's recently been announced it's going to close next year because Dr. Hilary Cass, who's been doing this report into it, basically has found it unsafe. One of the things being that they push affirmative therapy, which is, i.e., a 10-year-old kid goes in and says, boy says, I'm a girl, or girl, but mostly it seems to be girls saying they're a boy, and the therapist will just go, oh, yeah, you are, and here are some drugs, essentially, is the gist of it.
Exactly. And of course, there's a downside to that, which is that a lot of the kids have other issues. Yes. They're autistic, they might be homosexual or gender non-conforming.
All of that. So maybe even 9 of the 10 kids would have just grown up to be gay. Totally cool. Now that it's been announced it's going to close down, a law firm has announced that they're now being approached by a certain number of families, and that they're predicting that's going to increase to about 1,000 families. They're going to say, essentially, that you pushed us down this path too soon, and it has long-term impact.
And it's not just families, it's some of the kids themselves who are now detransitioning. Some people have even had genitals removed and all sorts of horrible stuff because they were encouraged down a path that was not right for them.
Absolutely.
And this is really sad.
Yeah, and I thought we were a decade away from this blowing up into being a huge medical scandal. So, it's incredible to see so quickly 1,000 families.
Yeah.
How this clinic hasn't even, dealt with a huge number of people. So for such a huge proportion of them to be considering legal action is just incredible. And the worst thing about it is, my taxes, and your taxes as well, which I don't care about, but my taxes were spent on this clinic. My taxes were spent transitioning these children.
The money would come in and go.
And then, my taxes were spent detransitioning these children, and now my taxes are going to be spent getting sued by these children.
Because it's the NHS that are going to have to fork out.
So why don't they just ask me before they spend any more of my taxes?
On the positive side, you are getting paid now to talk about it, so you are earning some of that money back.
And also, let's think about these families. They do require some recompense for what went on here.
No, I think you make the... come on. There's only so much tax. There's only so much tax. If you can transition your children, but fine, that's it. You stick with that. You can't none of this I had my fingers crossed.
It's not just about that, though, is it? It's actually really important that people are held to account here because otherwise it might happen again.
Yeah.
And the real issue, I suppose, with the Tavistock is that whistleblowers within, people who work there, gender specialists who were saying, hang on, this is dodgy. Most of these kids are just gay. We need to really talk about this. They were so terrified of being called bigots and transphobes that the whole thing got shut down. This is a dangerous situation. We can't allow this to happen twice.
No, of course not. But also, when are some of the people who have been pushing this ideology? When's it going to be enough for them to just go, wait a minute?
Well, I haven't seen anyone who's been supportive of Tavistock and their methods saying, oh yeah, okay, I was wrong. We were wrong about this, so no, I haven't seen anyone. I haven't seen Owen Jones. I haven't seen any columnists at The Guardian. I haven't seen anyone actually admit we made a mistake.
And there are still lots of other clinics. There's a hospital, a children's hospital in Boston, for example, that performs affirming hysterectomies on children. And this is insanity. It's obviously
it's worse in America. We've got double mastectomies with young kids, removing healthy breast tissue. This is...
life-changing surgery on children who, they often feel railroaded into the process.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously there's children that are trans and will continue as trans into their adult life.
Yeah,
but
for a minority.
For a huge proportion, for around 90%, puberty resolves the issues. So, all this... And it's also become a social contagion. It's replaced eating disorders for young women.
So this is why I do understand your annoyance about the financial implications to the taxpayer. But just think, if these people don't take action, and this happens again and again, and it keeps happening, I think you need stuff like this.
Why can't we have a tax on blue hair dye? Why can't we have a tax on blue hair dye that pays for all this? A tax on The Guardian, the people who push this ideology, the people who are really responsible.
Manga sort of avatars.
Yeah.
Manga avatars on Twitter. Yeah,
would be.
Tax that, and then you solve all of this problem. Anyway, Friday's Mail, and common sense seems to be prevailing here, Leo.
Yeah, so NHS-backed guidance on periods will be updated to include the terms women and girls in a victory for campaigners, which...
What is this? This is a guidance on periods.
Yeah.
And they had somehow avoided the word woman. It's quite relevant, isn't it?
Yeah, you'd think you might want to just briefly mention
drop it
that
in
women.
there somewhere.
I mean, purely from a... Well, this is a website called Bloody Brilliant, which cost taxpayers £84,000, was set up by the Welsh Government, and they omitted the words women and girls in favour of phrases like people who bleed, which is everybody.
Everyone.
And half the population, which again is everybody, because everybody's in a certain half of the population. Right. So it's an absolute nonsense, and also there's some serious health issues. If you're not that bright, or if English is your second language, you're not going to know. I mean, everybody knows what a woman is. That's an easy to understand word, and translates into different languages. But people who bleed, that's going to be so confusing to somebody who's a new entrant.
Especially women. So, Josh, what do you think on?
Well, just the fact that the whole point of this website was to make it clear and to promote dialogue about periods and positivity about it, and then it literally did the total opposite of that by making it obtuse and confusing. Yeah. Just to fit this ideological sort of inclusion thing for a few people.
And like Josh says, there's going to be more people who struggle with the English language who are going to be reading this stuff than there are who this particularly pertains to. How are they going to feel about a phrase like people who bleed? If I was learning English, I wouldn't have a clue what that meant.
And also, it's very offensive to many women who just find that kind of language disgusting. And like now, it's not just in this NHS Wales or whatever, but this has been going on, as we know, over the last few years. But I'd never seen this one before. The NHS Brighton and Sussex hospitals have been calling it, instead of breast milk, they're calling it human milk.
Human milk?
Human milk.
Who wants some human milk? But I mean, I think even worse than that, more offensive than that, is if those people pay tax, they're going to be appalled by the amount of money that's been spent. This website, £84,000 was spent on this website. This organisation has all these senior equality roles. The Mail Online found 5 adverts for senior equality roles.
They said they're cutting down on it, and they're still advertising
for £76,000 each. There are people. You could get two nurses for that.
Which would be a much better use of money, let's be
honest.
Much
better use of money. And all this stuff. So equality, diversity and inclusion, what it does is it gets involved, introduces ideology, makes things worse, and spends lots of public money doing it. The whole thing can be scrapped tomorrow.
You know what? I would love to play devil's advocate here because I like hearing all sides, but I can't bring myself to defend phrases like chest feeders instead of breastfeeders, because that sounds like a zombie film.
Yeah.
This is a big waste of time. We've got to move on from all of this and move on to another story. This is Friday's Daily Star now. Not sure you can get these perfumes in the duty-free, Josh.
No. So, women are warned not to use vaginal. Am I allowed to say vaginal?
I think you are.
Discharge.
Yes.
Can we say discharge?
Yeah, but don't say them both together in quick succession.
As perfume, as this trend explodes. Now,
what's this trend called?
Well, this is the thing. It's called vabbing.
Yes.
But I read the whole article and I was very confused because I thought I misread it as vaping.
So you thought this was an article about vaping?
About vaping and vaginal. So I was like, how are these two? Literally, people.
When did the pen drop on this one, Josh?
Not just now, actually. But no. So it's called vabbing,
and it's become really big.
It's become big at TikTok, and we'll get on to that. Actually, we've got a nice TikTok story later. But it's been the idea is, of course, your pheromones are meant to attract people, and there are different people on TikTok saying that, oh, look, it's really worked for me and I've got a date and whatever. But a doctor has come out and said, don't do it. Dr. Paraskevi Dimitriadi, he's a private gynecologist, and he has essentially said, if you use dirty fingers to do this, you could have a whole load of issues here. So there's a whole article about you could become infertile, and you
Isn't there a hygiene issue here?
Well, there is a hygiene, but at the same time, you sort of go, just wash your hands.
Yeah, and he's quite alarmist. He says, you could get, if you use your fingers in your vagina, you could get an infection that could cause pelvic inflammatory disease and make you infertile. And it's like, come on. Like, nobody's getting that from fingers.
But anyway, I'm going to move on because I'm nervous about where this conversation is going. We're going to go on to Friday's Telegraph now. And is there a case for cultural relativism, Leo?
Well, we'll see. So this is in the Telegraph. Women who refuse marriage proposals in northern Chad, which is an African country, will have to pay a fine of up to £30 under a new ruling. I should imagine that's a lot of money there. So the Higher Islamic Council in the eastern town of Mangalme has decreed that men must pay £12 and women up to £30 for refusing to marry. So if somebody,
What's men as well? Men have to pay.
Men have to pay about a lesser amount.
What if a man asks a man to marry him?
That wouldn't happen
it's a
northern
Muslim.
Chad.
Is that frowned upon?
Just about.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fun. They say the fine. The authorities say that the fine, which is known as Amchilini, is based on the Quran and follows Sharia law. So
yeah, but apparently 43% of this country are Christian.
Yes.
And are very worried about Sharia law.
Because there's various of Sharia laws that have been coming into play over.
That's not good.
No, that's not good, of course. And I should also be pointed out that Chad has the world's highest child marriage rate. So I think it's 70% of girls are married before they're 18.
Okay.
30% of girls are married before they turn 15.
So really this is it's not just about this issue of people having to pay if they refuse to marry. It's about these sectarian issues.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's children having to pay. Like, well, a
it sounds less damaging than a hysterectomy, to be honest, which is what you get in the West.
Yeah, so
at least you're not paying their taxes, Liv.
I'm not paying for this. This is self-funding. In fact, this is raising money from people, so it's much better. But I mean, by 2050, the UK will be, current demographic trends, Islam will be the largest religion in the UK.
If you're going to suggest that the UK is going to become an Islamic state, I think you're very wrong.
No, I mean, I'm not saying it's going to become an Islamic state, but if Islam is the largest religion in the UK, that's going to have some impact and influence.
Well, I've done my bit for Judaism. I've done my 5 kids. Someone else has got to chip in now.
Yeah, but I mean, Jews are starting from a much smaller base than Islam, which is like.
Well, I'm from a Catholic family. We used to be really good at reproducing, except for the gay ones.
You haven't helped.
No, I haven't helped. This next one is from Friday's Metro. This personally offends me as a vegetarian, I have to say.
Yeah, women who don't eat meat are more likely to break hips.
Is that true, though? Because you always get these alarmist...
Yes, it is, because there's a study here in an article.
It's in the Metro, Josh.
In the Metro, but it's a big old study. Let's not question science. Certainly this is from China. No, it's not. 26,000 women aged 35 to 69 have been studied across the UK for, I think, last 20 years. Now they're releasing bits of information as they're finding this stuff out. But they found that after around 20 years, 822 hip fractures amongst women, they found that 3% of them...
So and it's not a study that was commissioned by the Metro, to be fair.
No, it isn't. This is a long-going study, but one of the things that they found out is essentially... And look, this has been sort of... people have been kind of guessing this for a long time, that essentially bone density is going to be affected by not eating meat.
But the thing is, though, you always hear these also similarly alarmist articles about how eating meat, too much meat, causes problems
too
for
much,
you. So,
too little. Life is about balance.
So why can't we just let people eat what they want and not worry about it?
Well, if you want to fall over and hurt your hip...
It's only women, though, apparently.
Well, they haven't done a study on men.
But then I'm going to assume that
let's try it now.
It doesn't have any effect on men.
Yeah, you're totally
because there's no evidence.
Well, obviously, I mean, the hips don't lie, if I can just quote Shakira. But
was she talking about this study?
She might have been.
Yeah.
But we're omnivores. We know that because, historically, we've always eaten loads of stuff. So if you restrict the diet of an omnivore to just vegetables...
I'm not an omnivore.
Oh, you're a vegetarian?
I'm a herbivore.
You're a herbivore?
Yeah, that's right. So what does it speak for yourself?
I knew I'd met her before.
Oh, for goodness sake. Listen, on that note, we have to end. That's the end of part 2. A part all about women's issues, wasn't it?
That's great.
Who better to discuss that than 3 men?
I'm looking forward to reading those tweets.
Yeah. Anyway, we've reached the end of part 2. Coming up, why thinking is bad for you, why things aren't going too well at Netflix, and how Google plans to stop all the silliness. See you in 2 minutes.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch. You've been cancelled. Join the club. Oh, my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners. I'm still Andrew Doyle, he's still Josh Howie, and that one over there is still Leo Kearse. Positive news now from Friday's Mail. Humanity isn't going to be wiped out by superbugs. Yay!
Yeah, so for decades, we've been concerned that antibiotics are losing their ability to fight bugs. And we've had the rise of antibiotic-resistant diseases, MRSA and all the rest of it. So scientists have developed a drug that is hoped can just wipe them all out. So fabimycin, not to be confused with vabimycin, which is something that you rub in your neck and smells of pheromones. So this is a man-made antibiotic. It was found to kill hundreds of bacteria that are resistant to common medicines. And this is a serious thing. So superbugs are estimated to contribute to around 7 million deaths per year.
And I'm right in thinking that these superbugs developed because of people weren't taking their full antibiotic treatments.
Yeah, so
right?
basically, if you don't take your full antibiotic treatment, then you don't completely kill off the bug, but you kill off most of the bacteria.
But the ones
that are left, the ones that are resistant to it, come back and multiply and then infect other people.
And they're probably hench.
Also, antibiotics have been overprescribed, and they've been prescribed in farming. They're used in farming a lot, and all this contributes to them becoming less, less effective.
So good news, Josh.
Amazing news, because this has been a real problem. There's been articles about this for years and years.
But it kills millions.
Yeah, so it kills millions, and they're saying in by 2050, it would be like 10 million people would be dying or whatever. So, and also people dying of things that they wouldn't die of only a few years earlier. So this is fantastic news, and well done, University of Illinois.
Well done, fantastic stuff. Friday's Guardian now. And is this one about censorship or mollycoddling, Leo?
I think it's mollycoddling, but it might backfire. So Google will stop giving snappy answers to stupid questions. The company announces it seeks to improve its search engine's featured snippet service. So basically, the snippet brings up a little thing that it thinks is the right answer, but if there's a data void, if there's a lack of data, then it can grab this snippet from a far-right conspiracy website or accurate source of information, as I call them. So there have been queries like, when did Snoopy assassinate Abraham Lincoln? Which obviously Snoopy didn't assassinate Abraham Lincoln.
How do you know?
The service would, because he wasn't created then. The service responds with 1865, so it's the right date but the wrong assassin. Other questions, if you asked, is Obama planning a coup? It would reply saying Obama may in fact be planning a communist coup d'etat at the end of his term in 2016.
Again?
So it got that from a conspiracy
Might be true.
website. Also said that the stairs were invented in 1946. But the thing is, all right, it's not accurate because Snoopy didn't assassinate Abraham Lincoln, but it's still giving you the right date, which is probably what the person wanted to know.
Well, also, anyone who's searching for this kind of stuff, anyone who's putting that question in, when did Snoopy assassinate Abraham Lincoln, they're having a laugh anyway.
Yeah.
So I don't think this really affects. I don't think it's going to have major implications, is it?
I hope. For me personally, the bit I'm scared about is that it can't ask in terms of what does my dad's farts sound like, or something like that. That's what my kids.
People write that sort of stuff in?
No, but my kids are constantly. That's all they ask, or whatever. On the Alexa, what does a cow fart sound like? As long as they've still got that feature.
Well, that's for the kids.
And believe it or not, later on, you then get offered. You're like, do you want to buy the package which has all the animal farts? They try and sell you.
What? Oh my goodness!
Amazon
Keep your children away from Alexa.
I know.
I think that's what you need to do. Anyway, we're moving on now.
And then I'd have to talk to them.
You would have to talk to them, exactly.
So.
The Alexa is the surrogate parent then. This is the malleability of minds now from Friday's Telegraph, Leo.
So apparently too much thinking can poison your brain. So studies shown that overworking your brain leads to it literally poisoning itself with chemicals released into the prefrontal cortex, which forces the body to slow down and, makes you feel sleepy. So previously, people thought that feeling tired from thinking is a myth. But actually, when you think, this chemical called glutamate builds up in your brain, and it can only be eliminated by copious amounts of coffee and cocaine. No, it can only be eliminated by having a sleep. So when you sleep, this is processed out of your brain.
This is
you
true.
wake up refreshed.
I can just spend a day writing stuff and they're not moving, and because I've used my brain time, I have to sleep. I mean, this happens to me all the time, so this is a real thing. People just said I was lazy, but no, now I've got science on my
Absolutely,
on my
like
side.
when I have some writing or when I was writing scripts and things like that, you'd focus intently 2 hours and then have a 10-minute nap, and then suddenly it's all good again. So this is great that the science has sort of been explained.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're moving on to the Telegraph, I think, again. Leo, this is the... which story is this, though? No, sorry, we're moving on to... We're not doing that one. We're doing Friday's Sun. Reporting not great news for Netflix here.
No, Disney Plus has overtaken Netflix for the first time ever in this whole streamers battle for subscribers. Disney has also announced it's going to be launching an ad-supported streaming service. So they're going to be putting their prices up at the end of this year and next year for the rest of the world. I think up to $10.99 in America.
Yeah.
But you can stay at the same rate, keeping ads. This is bad news, very much obviously for Netflix, which was the first sort of big company on the scene.
Yes.
But their figures, they lost nearly 1 million accounts. Recently, I just watched Sandman this week.
How is that?
It's not good. I'm a massive fan of the comic book, and it's not.
So much on Netflix these days is disappointing.
It's this, but this. This is a separate debate in terms of go woke, go broke, and whatever.
Yeah.
But they've made some ridiculous decisions. They got this scene set in a pub in 1389. And a bunch of the customers or people who work there are black, and then it cuts to every 100 years, 1489, 1589. You're like, I know, yes, people of colour have existed in the UK since Roman times, coming over with centurions and whatever. But the idea that this one pub is just every time you cut back to it, there's going to be people. And the thing is, when they later then talk about the transatlantic slave trade, it's if you have the colourblind casting, that's great, if that and certainly in something like fantasy, there's no reason why you couldn't do the stuff. But when you're also setting it in real life historical times with William Shakespeare and this and that, and the idea that this pub is this multicultural.
It throws you out of it if they're going for historical accuracy.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
that is an issue there. It isn't really a race issue at all.
And also the thing is that most of the series is set in present day.
Yeah.
So of course you can have the representation and diversity. These are good things. But when you sort of putting it into these historical settings, it does throw you out. And even when you're in a fantasy where you need to be slightly grounded.
What it is political preaching. It's about identity politics, and that's the point.
Well, it comes from the investment firms. So every company now is steered by ESG, so environmental, social, and governmental. It's almost like the EDI, the Equality, Diversity, and Inclusion equivalent of an investment firm or a corporation. So they ensure that a company has to hit all these social, ethical points, which means that to get investors, Netflix has to say, oh, look what we're doing for the trans community and for anti-racism and Black Lives Matter and stuff, which means they're focused on making that preachy, woke nonsense instead of focusing on the storyline and the characters and the things that make films and
but the saddest thing is that the Sandman comic book has that stuff in it. And really brilliantly articulated in the comic book. by then trying to sort of just push it out there in a separate way. It's like, if you just stuck to it, that it says that stuff, and that's what's so amazing about it.
But they've ruined it. Yeah, I know. And Disney Plus, I mean, I thought Disney, it was all going to be like cartoons and stuff, but they've got all sorts of films and all sorts of things. They've got the new Predator film, which I'm very much looking forward to. So, you know,
it's pretty good.
Maybe we go to Disney. So Friday Sun, no, I think we've done that one as well, haven't we? This is a story about TikTok. What's this one about, Leo? Is it Leo or Josh?
Oh, yeah, no, it's me, SG. So, TikTok, it's quite... this sort of gives you... This is in the Telegraph, and it gives you a bit of a rundown about TikTok, and it's essentially massively overtaken Facebook now as the world's most popular website. It's growing... Well, no, sorry. I think Facebook's got, like, 2 billion, but in just 4 years...
It's
TikTok,
stealing all the kids, basically.
Yeah, basically stealing all the kids, and Facebook, their numbers are, like, dropped 13%.
Yeah.
In 1 year's time or 2 years' time, it's going to be 45% less teenagers on Facebook. So TikTok is replacing it, and they're saying, well, what is it? Is it dangerous? And they're kind of going, yeah, it is. Like, obviously, you had the tragic death of Archie Battersby.
And that was to do with a viral challenge.
That was some viral about choking yourself or something like that, just something really horrible. Then you have the tics in teenage girls who are like picking it up from being on the site too much.
Yeah.
Then you had young people just turning to TikTok to get all their news. That's not going to be a good thing, getting your news from any one particular
Can I ask,
source,
though, there's
apart
all
from
this
this
stuff
channel.
about children's health.
Yeah.
In addition, though, am I not right in thinking that in China, companies are obliged to turn over information to the government if they are asked to do so?
Yeah.
And this is there's a surveillance issue.
And that's
absolutely. So TikTok say that the data from the West doesn't leave, you know, because there are strict rules around online data. They say it doesn't leave, but I don't believe that for a second.
Well, it says here it didn't happen. Yeah, in America, it went to them.
TikTok is a tool of the Chinese government, the Chinese Communist Party, and they're using it. We're in a soft war. The West is in a soft war with Russia and China, and they're using it to destabilise the West. They're using it to destabilise, you know, so if you look at TikTok in the West, it's just depravity. It's glorifying sex work and
I've never been on it, so I don't know what it is.
I haven't been on it either.
You can trust me. I don't spend much on it, but there's very little of any value on TikTok. And if you go on TikTok in China, it's all like algebra and family values and stuff that's going to, you know, make you a good citizen.
Is that right?
So they're sowing seeds to destabilise the West.
That's interesting because what it says here, and I'm sure that's true, but it says it doesn't care about who you follow, who your friends are, anything like that. The only thing it focuses on is the amount of time that you watch a video. So if you watch a video on a particular subject or a particular thing, it will then just purely push you down that route.
Wow.
So I wonder here if actually we're watching video, we go, look at that TikTok thing, whereas maybe culturally in China there might be more of a drive just through the culture, not necessarily through the algorithm.
Although the Chinese government has a lot of control of the internet.
Yeah. No, of course.
Anyway, look, we're going to move on now to this is more on the Mr. Bean sex debate. By that we mean Sean Bean, not Mr. Bean, because we were talking about this the other day. He was talking about sex scenes in films, but now Emma Thompson has got involved in this one, Leo.
Yeah, so Emma Thompson, the ecology campaigner and private jet aficionado, has opposed Sean Bean's recent comments about the usefulness of intimacy coordinators on film and TV sets. So on film and TV sets, you have to have these people who say, OK, your hand goes here, now you vab your neck. You know, there's all this guidance, and it's obviously to stop, you know, women and men being, you know, sexually exploited. But Sean Bean came out and said, you know, it spoils the spontaneity of the moment, which, you know, I can imagine it would. But anyway, he's been pilloried by Hollywood figures such as Rachel Zegler and Jamila Jamil. And now Emma Thompson's got stuck in to say the sex coordinators are fantastically important.
What do you think, Joe? I mean, like, you know, we were talking about this the other day, and I did wonder about artistically as an actor, if you've got someone trying to do something, apply something so clinically to something that is quite organic, that it will throw you out of the role, and maybe the scene will end up not being as convincing. Yeah,
I mean, I imagine there is some level of pre-talking, you know, working the stuff out. I mean, being on set, that you are surrounded by. Well, there's a lot of men. I'm sure it's very more uncomfortable for women, but I'm sure it's also uncomfortable for men.
Yeah.
But you are surrounded. It's probably you know, an incredibly unsexy place to do that stuff. So anything that and it also depends on what type of actor you are. I think there are different types of actors who are.
If you're a method actor.
And there are people who are more clinical. There are people who want to just kind of go with it and go crazy. But the women have been abused in the past,
particularly in Hollywood.
And particularly in Hollywood. And these steps, you know, if that has to be the price that he's not as free, then I think it's better there's someone there just watching what's going on.
Well, over to Friday's Mail now, and the French aren't going to be happy about this one, Josh. Joan of Arc.
No, Joan of Arc, yes. So she is, this is Shakespeare's Globe Theatre. They're putting on a play about Joan of Arc, and they are making her non-binary. And they're using the pronouns they and them. This is a trend that we have obviously seen over the last few years of people in the trans debate using historical figures to make their case.
What I worry about, though, with this is, and often what happens is they tend to take a historical female figure, and because she had traits that are
wore trousers.
Yeah. Either she wore men's clothes or was courageous, strong, showed leadership values, they say, well, she can't be a woman then. And effectively, there's a kind of misogyny sort of at the heart
Absolutely.
of this.
She was a suffragette icon. She was a feminist icon. And just to suddenly go, oh, no, that's the only reason that she had those qualities is because she was actually kind of half man.
Yeah, exactly. They've done the same with James Miranda Barry, the doctor, who presented as a male because you couldn't possibly be a female doctor at this time and get anywhere.
Yeah.
But they're saying, no, well, this is a trans figure. No, it's not. It's a woman.
And Yentl.
Anyway, Josh, what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's a nonsense, and like you say, it's very reductive and based on very old-fashioned and outmoded gender stereotypes.
Yeah,
we've known for decades now that men can be anything from David Bowie to Engelbert Humperdinck. You know what I mean? You can have any level of masculinism. You can dress however you want. The same with women. We've had women. Look at the women who flew across the Atlantic.
Yeah.
And there's also Fatima Whitbread. So there's all kinds of women out there.
Exactly.
They don't all have to be dainty, prancing around.
Exactly. This feels so regressive. There's Moll Cutpurse, who was a celebrity at Shakespeare's time, who was a woman who used to get into fights, and dressed like a man and all the rest of it. Why can't we just accept that some women have some stereotypically masculine traits? Why is that so hard for people to... And this is a weird one as well. The Globe Theatre, has defended the decision to make Joan of Arc a they-them by saying Shakespeare would have approved. He wouldn't have even understood what's it got to do with him. It's not his play anyway, for one thing.
And he clearly, I mean, the people who wrote the play, these historical texts, they were written. So if anybody who wrote this play wanted it to be a they-them, they could have made them.
But this is a new play. This is the point.
But
you do wonder what they'll do with Henry VI Part 1, which has Joan of Arc in it,
right,
and see what they do to Shakespeare's Joan of Arc. We'll see. Anyway, we'll try and get one more story if we can. This is the Mirror and a man of principle. Josh, this one's for you.
Yeah, this is in the Indian Supreme Court. A man has just won 21 pence back from the rail company.
22 years in court.
22 years. He's a lawyer, so he's been able to fight it himself. 22-year legal battle. Yeah, he was shortchanged on buying a train ticket in 1999, and he was finally refunded the tiny sum plus 2 decades of interest. That's £2.90. And
it's persistence, isn't it?
I mean, I kind of respect. He's been over 100 hearings in connection with this case, and in the legal system in India, it can be very delayed when judges go off on holiday and what. So he's like, I'm not giving up. I'm going to get my 21
Well, I admire the persistence, but you know, shades of Bleak House here, isn't it? I mean, this idea of keeping a thing going for decades. And what for?
I think it's going to be slightly anticlimactic now.
We've got to end now, unfortunately, on that note. But thanks for joining us for Headliners. Join us again tomorrow at 11 o'clock. Comedians will be taking you through the next day's papers. Don't miss it. See you then.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.